Thank you for spending another midweek moment with the Wisconsin property taxpayers. I'm Paul Rozeski. Today is Wednesday, May 20th, 2026. Thanks for being here. All sorts of business to get caught up on today. First, let's look to the week ahead. Hopefully, you have something fun in store for Memorial Day weekend, but may I suggest you ease into the festivities on Thursday, which is National Waiter and Waitresses Day. And if you do, be sure to tip with cash, since no tax on tips was vetoed by the governor earlier this year and then voted down again last week in the tax rebates that our government decided you don't deserve. Apparently, we didn't stand in line the right way or ask the right way like good little taxpayers, and no soup for you. But seriously, however you do pay tribute this Memorial Day weekend, please celebrate responsibly. This week, we start out by looking at something cool in Wisconsin, give the latest update in the tax refund debacle, look at yet another way Governor Evers is ruffling a lot of feathers, and we wrap it all up with a quote about human nature, power, and why government needs guardrails from a founding father who was also the shortest president in American history. All right, we are ready to launch, so let's jump into some news together. And let's start with something cool in Wisconsin. The universities of Wisconsin awarded bachelor's degrees to incarcerated students this week for the first time since 1975. The Prison Education Initiative launched in 2022 with a $5.7 million grant, and it's a partnership between the UW system and the Department of Corrections. According to the report, more than 200 incarcerated students have now earned associate degrees or other UW credentials through the program. Graduation ceremonies were held at two institutions. UW Green Bay awarded bachelor's degrees to current or former Oak Hill Correctional Facility residents. Eau Claire and Stout awarded degrees to students at Stanley Correctional. Now, this is one of the topics where people could see this and have a gut reaction one of two ways. On one hand, there are upstanding citizens and taxpayers with kids that are working, borrowing, and paying tuition, while inmates are triple dipping tax dollars by bogging down the justice system, paying to keep them incarcerated, and then paying for them to earn degrees with public help. And hey, they're not necessarily wrong. Taxpayers have every right to question what this costs and where the money is coming from. But on the other hand, we also have to assume this will drastically reduce recidivism. You gotta believe if someone is going to be released, and most people in prison eventually will be, the taxpayer has a real interest in whether that person leaves prison with a higher likelihood of quickly having success in the real world. There is plenty of government spending that I would cut before even considering getting rid of something like this, because a prison system that only punishes and never sets people up to succeed in life after prison is not a taxpayer bargain. It's usually an ongoing and growing invoice. In other news, a group of Republican lawmakers sent a letter to Governor Evers asking him to call the legislature back into special session after last week's collapse of the tax relief and school funding agreement. The letter was signed by Representatives Shannon Zimmerman, Todd Novak, Bob Donovan, Pat Snyder, Ben Franklin, and Clint Moses. They thanked the governor for the continued dialogue and said the original agreement reflected the kind of compromise voters expect from elected officials. It also argues that one failed vote should not end the effort because Wisconsin families still face rising costs and growing pressure on household, blah, 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 blah. Well, the state is still sitting on a surplus of money that came from the taxpayers in the first place. The entertaining part is the politics, because all hell broke loose when this fell apart. Everyone was in damage control mode. You got blamed and had to justify your actions, whether you were a senator, a Democrat, a Republican, Tony Evers, Robin Voss, Devin LeMahieu, Tom Tiffany, or an incumbent seeking re-election. Everyone got blamed, and everyone had well-crafted justifications for their part in this clown show. Meanwhile, us taxpayers are still standing here. One, it's like we're listening to some kids caught red-handed, being stupid, and having to listen to their weak, mumbling, stammering excuses that just makes them look worse than if they just stood there and kept their mouth shut. Yes, all you politicians, I'm talking to you. And two, we're looking around saying, excuse me, I thought this was our money. And if you act like you're going to give me my change, don't be surprised when we get kind of ticked off when you go back on your word. As far as the special session goes, I have to keep recording the podcast, so I ain't holding my breath. In other news, let's swing back around to another prison-related topic and get you caught up on a new Governor Evers initiative that is quickly becoming an unpopular issue for district attorneys, victims' families, and law enforcement, just to name a few. Earlier this spring, the governor signed an executive orders restoring a commutation process in Wisconsin for the first time in decades. He's already been issuing pardons, which is technically for someone who has already completed their sentence. A commutation is different because it can shorten or practically end someone's sentence while they're serving it. And based on the governor's new criteria, an inmate can apply if they have more than 1 year left on their sentence, have served at least half of their term, or at least 20 years of a life sentence, have no unresolved charges or outstanding warrants, have no incidents of violent misconduct in the last 5 years. The order excludes certain crimes, including sexual assault and the physical abuse of a child, and the Commutation Advisory Board is not only supposed to consider prison conduct, rehabilitation, education, work history, and personal growth, but also the victims and public safety. Well, the announcement and application criteria came out a month and a half ago and now we are starting to see what that means in practice. According to reporting out of Washington County, District Attorney Barry Bratz, what a Wisconsin name that is, Barry Bratz, said some of the commutation requests his office has received include people convicted of homicide, a woman convicted of child neglect resulting in death, a seventh offense drunk driver, and a man convicted after beating his wife with a baseball bat. Now, obviously, everyone knows that just because you ask for something doesn't mean you will get it. Also, obviously, the governor knows this from both directions since none of his budget proposals were adopted, but also he has vetoed hundreds of bills. Hopefully that veto mentality is the same mentality he starts with here. Now, I have to admit, I've yet to have a beef with his standards for giving pardons. The challenge for the governor is that he has opened the door, and even if there's a flood of them, everyone will have to be aggressively scrutinized. Victims deserve a voice and better be given a weighted score, if you know what I mean. District attorneys could easily see some of these decisions as a slap in the face on top of an already thankless job. The public deserves transparency, and you know that any governor better be dang careful, because every announced commutation will be hyper-analyzed and get at least some level of criticism no matter what. Social media, without a doubt, will whip itself up into a froth and have opinions about whether this is a careful case-by-case process. Now, I doubt this will happen, but if it starts to feel like a broad attempt to reduce the prison population through mandate, this won't be pretty. And I actually shudder to imagine what Mr. Reducing Prison Populations is Now Sexy Mandela Barnes would do with this. The other thing here is that the Commutation Board is going to have to be really careful with any of the first ones that they approve, because they're going to be trusting that inmate to keep their nose clean for the rest of their life. Because any screw up, especially early on, will immediately bring calls to shut down the whole program for the sake of society as a failure. That is a ton of unacknowledged pressure put on someone that has already shown that they could take the wrong fork in the road. And finally, I give you a quote from James Madison, POTUS number 4, father of the Constitution, co-author of the Federalist Papers, and at about 5'4", the shortest president in American history. In Federalist 51, he wrote, and I quote, "If men were angels, no government would be necessary." Have a great second half of your weekend. As always, thanks for listening. Wisconsin Property Taxpayers Inc. is a nonpartisan membership organization consisting of thousands of small business, farm, and homeowner members in every springtime weather-loving corner of the state. Founded in 1985, the organization is committed to providing its members with up-to-date information, legislative advocacy, and exclusive cost-saving benefits. Find out how to join at WPTOnline.org/join.